All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to Driving the Conversation here on Driving and Dragons. I'm Daniel, and tonight we have a very special guest. We are going to be bringing on Professor DM from Dungeon Craft. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I don't know how you haven't. If you're anybody who's going to pay attention to a TTRPG channel as small as mine, there's no way that you could avoid the $1 million behemoth that is the backer kit for Deathbringer. But as you know, we are going to be following up here on the 7 keys to effective TTRPG design. In specific, we will be talking tonight about the design, then refine key. And I think this is actually pretty apropos because if you follow Dungeon Craft, you know that Professor DM's been working on Deathbringer for a while. And you can go way back into his early videos and see that this game was finished and then refinished and then refinished and then refinished. It wasn't just something that he slapped together. It wasn't perfect in its first iteration. It was something that he finished and then kept working on. So he kind of has a track record showing that particular key, and we're going to get his thoughts on that. So while we're letting folks in here, I did throw a thing up on Patreon for any questions that they might have for Professor DM. Didn't have too much there. But guys, super chats tonight. There's no special on them or anything like that. But if we do hit a goal, if I do get 10 of them, I'm going to add another mini to my 1,000 sub giveaway. When I hit 1,000 subs, I've got some minis that I'm giving out to you guys. I've got a miniature of the Datsun 280ZX that I'm restoring that you see on the channel on a regular basis. I've got a mini of the 3D print file for the mini of the 1974 Dodge Dart that I plan to give away off this channel when we get to that point. As we all know, that's what I do here. Money that this channel brings in goes into the kitty goes into the cars get given away, hopefully to somebody who really needs it. But the way we're going to do that, just for those of you who don't know, because I haven't talked about it in a minute, when a car is finished, you guys get to nominate people in the TTRPG community who you think would benefit from owning that vehicle. And then we will turn around and have a drawing, and somebody's going to get a pretty cool car. And who knows, maybe if sunshine and rainbows and wishes and dreams come true and I hit a bunch of lucky stars in the lottery and a bunch of other stuff, I will one day start the RallyCon gaming convention where we all meet up and drive between a couple of different cons as a group and have fun with it. Tonight, I've got Doc Holliday bourbon for the evening. Just drinking it on the rocks tonight. This is a pretty cool bottled and bond bourbon. It's 100 proof out of Oklahoma. I'm not gonna lie, a big part of the reason I got it is because this bottle is cool as hell. I mean, it's a 6-shooter on the top, revolver cylinder. It's got the cow skull. It's got the actual picture of Doc Holliday. I would not have been mad if there was like a Val Kilmer picture on the back, but royalties and all such. But it's great bourbon, great price, but that's what we are drinking tonight. Before I bring Professor DM on, I'm going to throw my stuff on the floor, destroy my own property, and be completely unprofessional about things. Corvid Codex Volume 1, folks. 7 pulp stories written by people right here in the TTRPG community. I'd have to ask 2 of them because I don't know for sure. But at least 4 of the 6 authors of this book have active game designs at various different stages. So they're very deeply seated in our community. Obviously, you got Patio Capes for the cover, did an awesome job. You got Rob Necronomicon, who took all of our fantastic bespoke artwork. Grab it on Lulu. There's a pinned link there. And if you have a copy, leave a review. Or shoot me a review if you just want to keep it private. But I do want to hear you guys' feedback on that and see how you're liking it. We're very deep into working on issue 2, and we will have the global distribution for things like Amazon and stuff like that on volume 1 probably within the next week or so. I had to do some edits, and I've got the proof copy on its way. So, like I said, Corvid Codex Volume 1. Get your pulp, man. Get your pulp fix. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Professor DM, and we're going to get into talking about a little bit of Deathbringer. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Terrific. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Sounds great.
Okay. I just posted a link on the Deathbringer Facebook group.
Oh, fantastic. I appreciate that, which I need to get remiss of me. I need to dig up the backer kit link. Not that I'm going to be a real needle mover here for you. I mean, seriously, this is going to push you up over 2 million big time. Like, I mean, I only have like 5 or 6 people in the chat right now, but I'm telling you, these guys, they're all like multi-billionaires. Like it's Elon Musk out there. So, but seriously, in all honesty, I mean, congratulations, man. This is that's a fantastic success. You really can't hope for anything better to kick it off.
Yeah, it's far exceeded my expectations, and I really appreciate everybody who has backed Deathbringer. It's really flattering and incredible. And it's been a long journey, almost a 10-year journey to this point, and it's very gratifying after all this hard work. So thank you, everybody.
Well, yeah, you got it. What, 1.2 million thanks right now?
We're 1.1. We're 1.1, and I have projections from Backer Kit and Roll for Combat where it's going to end up, but I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a smart thing there. You got a pretty solid team behind you when it comes to going to people who already have walked the path beforehand to help you on the backside of the printing and importing and all that stuff. How are you handling your printing?
Roll for Combat does that. I partnered with Roll for Combat because they've done several done several Kickstarters before, and now we're on Backer Kit. But I wanted to work with people that have successfully fulfilled Kickstarters before. It was very important to me that people get their product as fast as possible. Now, if you're pledging money, you should get a project as fast as possible. I understand the delays involved, but many people have backed projects. They're 5 years out, and I did not want that to happen. And I also don't think that this is the time to. I was a school teacher for 3 decades, and we have a type of learning called discovery learning, and discovery learning is when you put a bunch of kids together in a group, and you have them discover you give them a bunch of chemicals in chemistry class, and you see what happens and what they discover. And I don't think that running a $1 million Kickstarter is something you do with on-the-job training, where I'm learning to do it for the first time, and I don't think it's a thing that you do. You're not funding a think tank. I wanted to make sure the game was finished enough that we could confidently say, oh yeah, we could put out a book in 6 months or so. So that's why I work with them.
Well, 10 years worth of work. You definitely, I think you probably got about as much laboratory testing as you can really get for a solid game. And you got to put it out there in the wild and see how that see how it faces the enemy, so to speak. Oh yeah, of course, totally unprofessional side note. I do have to point out there that I do appreciate the fact that you have proudly featured on your shelf the white label Evan Williams, because
it is
you absolute underrated. I've got one in my liquor cabinet right now. That is an absolute underrated gem, a $15 bourbon that drinks like it's 60.
Yeah, actually this was brought to me from Kentucky. This is Baron DeRop, Dungeon Masterpiece, got me this.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
dollar for dollar, it's hard to beat. It is really hard to beat. That is a fantastic dollar for dollar. But it's like Wild Turkey 101. It's like it belongs on your bar cart forever because you might have guests, and it's perfect for just about however you want to use it. It makes a great old fashioned.
Yeah, that's my favorite drink, by the way, the old fashioned.
Really? You like it with bourbon?
I do.
Or are you more of a rye guy?
Bourbon.
Man after my own heart. Good Martini Rossi sweet vermouth, and nice high proof high rye bourbon all day long.
So I've done a lot of I've done a lot of streams, but I haven't done one where we talked about bourbon yet, or cars. I assume we're going to talk about cars later because I like cars too.
No, if we talk about cars, it'll get real bad. I want to be respectful of your time. We'll be here all day. Well, we can talk about cars if you want to. I mean, I'll have to ask you what you got out in the driveway at some point. Is it anything interesting? We got something cool out there.
I do.
All right, so yeah, we will definitely we'll put a pin in that.
All right.
Yeah, we will put a pin in that one. Oh boy, hope folks can hear that thunderstorm. Hopefully, we don't get cut short by the weather. So, Deathbringer. There's one thing I definitely want to clear up here because I mean, just like any of these games, and I thought this was hilarious because you're probably the least controversial person on the planet when it comes to TTRPG space. I know you've been vocal about that you're kind to everyone. I see it. And I really don't think I've ever met anybody who actually has like any kind of real gripe whatsoever when it comes to, when it comes to anything about you. But I do see even you were not immune to the people who have no idea what your game is and have not bothered to educate themselves in any way, telling everybody exactly what Deathbringer is. So you got the people, it's the new 5e killer. Oh, well, it's another 5e clone. It's 5e with some old school sprinkled on top. But it's like, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you built this off of BASIC, didn't you? Didn't you use BASIC as your seed?
The BASIC, if this were a car, the engine would be BX. And it's BX 1980 Moldve. And then stat blocks from Shadowdark. And level progression from Shadowdark. So it's compatible with both.
So you basically made really a more old school version. Well, obviously it stands alone on its own, but you've essentially made a more old school version of Shadowdark, even though they were clearly, I think you may have even started before her. I know that Kelsey started 8-9 years ago, but almost like the parallel thinking, she has a more modern brought back, a more modern game that's been brought back to old school. You really have an old school game that has been modernized to the point that you can bring in like the Shadowdark elements.
Yeah, we reverse engineered it and ended up with the same conclusions. And when I first read Shadowdark, because I knew of Kelsey, I knew of Shadowdark, but then we have a personal friend in common, which is Brandish Gillum, who is Runehammer on the Runehammer channel, and she was his game master. And Brandish and I were out in Philly drinking, and he says, "Hey, you got to get in touch with Kelsey. She's got this great game, Shadowdark. You should look at it." So we started communicating on Facebook, and she said, "Yeah, I'd love if you looked at my game." And I said, I looked at a lot of retro clones, but I'll look at it. And then when I read it, I was like, "Wow, this is pretty close to what I'm doing with Deathbringer." And then I said, "Congratulations, you beat me to it." And then I spent years struggling to try to figure out how to make it different before I realized Shadowdark's got just such a following. It's just a lot easier to make it similar. So, and Kelsey watched my channel for a long time. She was watching my channel.
Well, of course she was.
So it's we've collaborated. This is what's interesting about Deathbringer and Shadowdark is these are games that were created by a new generation of designers who didn't have any connections to the industry, learning from each other on YouTube, and creating games. It's really new. You know?
Yeah, and we've got a lot of new stuff coming out, and it's kind of fun as a game master too. I don't think there's ever been a time in the TTRPG space where owning a bunch of different games is really as not just as easy, but as useful to a game master, because you have so many things where it's like this cool idea has come up, this cool mechanic has been brought up by somebody and thrown out there because it's just in the, I hate to use the expression, but it's in the hive mind, so to speak, and it gets ping pong balled across so many people who are all thinking similar but slightly different. Then somebody puts out a game, you can download the thing for $5 off a drive through, and the whole game may not be all that great, but you get this one little piece that is that piece of the puzzle that solves something that's been a thorn in your side since you picked up your first player's handbook. And I just, there's so many unique and novel ideas that are coming out in published games through self-publishing. And like you said, through just, I've got my game and I can't quite figure it out. I've got something I'm stuck on. I watched an episode of Dungeon Craft. You say something about what you're doing with Deathbringer, and I'm like, that's my solution. That's how I fix it. That's the problem I couldn't articulate. And I couldn't agree more that this group of non-industry insiders who are not polluted by the man, I just completely forgot the word. But that word for not necessarily being in an echo chamber, but having that status quo thinking, like the conventional wisdom of the actual TTRPG space, like their modus operandi. They're all polluted by that sameness because the whole industry uses it, and it's a very small industry. And if you weren't ever part of it, you don't have that, and you have that novel thinking. And I think it's really been quite a benefit for the entirety of the space. Hold on, I got a super chat here that I know is for you. When can we expect
Deathbringer on ice skating? Minis would be fun to paint with a hockey stick. I never thought about it before, Shellback. I will say I did see the prototype for the Deathbringer resin statue and the Death Bride resin statue today, and they're really cool. I can't wait for those to come out. I'm going to be looking at.
I'm sorry, we got that tiny little delay that leads to me keep interrupting you. I was going to say you use who was it that you're using for your minis? Because I know you brought in a company that does these the way they're supposed to be done.
Westphalia is doing the minis. Westphalia, and they did Trench Crusade and Mirk board. But for backers at like the 375 or 475 level, there are these resin statues of Deathbringer and the Death Bride. And those are the ones I just saw today. They're really cool.
That's cool. And that's also, I mean, that's a big plus to the people who backed it too, because you're already seeing the stuff. You're already seeing the things coming out, and you're already in that stage. That shows you fulfillment right there. So many people don't start anything until they've already got their, they start with the Kickstarter. And so they really ought to call it like kick finisher, because you should have 99% everything done before you ever throw it out there.
It would scare the crap out of me if I was doing a game. Raising money from people, that's not the time to hire a think tank. You better have a real game.
Yep. Well, folks, you can hear it right here, straight from the horse's mouth. Deathbringer, and I said this about Shadow Dark, and so did several other people said it about Shadow Dark back when it first had its success. The same thing with Deathbringer. You heard it right here. Deathbringer is an overnight success that took 10 years. And that's if you don't count the fact that you wrote for Dragon Magazine, submitted some, then you have some adventures and stuff submitted, and articles submitted for Dragon Magazine as far back as, was it the 90s or the 80s that you wrote for them?
90s. Early 90s, like 1990,
Early.
1991.
No. So there you go. Overnight success that only took 36 years. So everybody needs to keep that in mind when you start talking about overnight success. Of course, when I first saw this right here, Deathbringer on Ice, the immediate thing I thought of is like, you know what? Minis, not so much. Game, not so much. But that is 100% an end buffer for a video is Deathbringer on Ice. That's where that belongs. That belongs with the Deathbringer cutaway.
Yeah, it's a pretty good idea.
Get the man a hockey jersey.
That is a pretty good idea. That is a pretty good idea. But more Deathbringer minis, it's a strong possibility depending on how the Kickstarter goes and if people want them. They will be made. They will be made. And the ones that are coming from Westphalia are fantastic. They're really great. I'm really proud of them.
And I wouldn't expect anything to be anything less than quality given the team you put together. And it's really the smart thing to do is finding those people who are, like I said, already successful in the area you need them to. It's like, you know how to do this. I'm just going to bring you on board to do it so that I don't screw it up. That's one of the hardest things to do, you know, when you're dealing with your baby, but at the same time, it's one of the smartest things to do if you want to do it right. When I'm working on one of my cars, there are certain things that it goes to the shop for. I mean, I am not a machinist. I will not be balancing pistons and rods. It's not going to happen. I will not balance a crankshaft. And if I do, if you ever see me on my channel in my garage with a Dremel tool trying to balance a crankshaft, I need everybody to super chat money to have me committed because I've gone crazy and I need to be in a loony bin. So there you go. Agile Monk says that you are looking sharp as always.
Thank you, Agile Monk. I just finished taping an episode, so you will see the same clothes on Tuesday's episode.
There you go, sneak peek. We got that's what we got here, folks. We got behind the scenes sneak peek early access stuff right here. So one of the other things that, you know, as I've pointed out 100 times to everybody on the planet, the I have opinions with no knowledge crowd, they love to jump on. It's like, oh, you know, it's still not, you know, it's supposed to be old school death mechanics, but it's not. And oh, it's just too many ways to get around death, too many, you know, stages before you're finished. You know, you're not just immediately eliminated, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is not accurate. But one of my favorite things about Deathbringer that I would love you to speak on is I absolutely love the heroic death mechanic that you have where it's like, hey, I'm going to jump out there and I'm going to get the automatic critical hit. I'm going to do something that matters, but I'm done for doing it. I'm a Hickman Revolution guy. I am a narrative game master. And to me, I'm like, this is guaranteeing that player gets their spotlight in exchange for they just got, you know, their dome caved in by an orc.
Yeah, all right. So I'll talk about that. And I'm glad you said, you know, Hickman Revolution, because that Tracy Hickman was a huge influence on me. I actually played a game with him when I was got to be 19, 20 years old, made a huge impression on me. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's Tracy Hickman believed that a game needs a dungeon needs to have a few elements, and one is a logical reason for being where it is. Like if there's a hall and it's 30 feet long, there's got to be a reason it's 30 feet long. And also, most scenarios should be either completable in one night or two. None, it goes forever. And you got to have some sort of plausible, things have to be kind of plausible, like where do the orcs or whatever go to the bathroom? And he did introduce narrative elements, and you could see them in the original Ravenloft module, where when the characters first go in and encounter Strahd, he welcomes them and he gives an evil villain speech introducing himself. And if they attack him, they discover it's a mirror, or it's an illusion, and he disappears. So Hickman really tried to figure out how to put narrative elements like a villain that you could remember, and the villain wants something and has a tragic background, and make a game more than just you're crawling through stone corridors and killing things and picking up the treasure. It's more than that. So with the death mechanic, which is and I'll speak to that. I'll speak to the people that are saying, well, it's not an old school game, right? You don't die at 0 hit points. One of the reasons it's not an old school game is because if you want that game, there's already old school essentials, which I have recommended. The game already exists. If you want to play BX Mulve, you can. And I can improve upon that if that's the game you want to play. So Deathbringer, it had to be, we do something new. It's not going to be an old school money grab retro clone. We had to do something new. So with this particular mechanic, the way it works is when you go to 0 hit points, you're knocked unconscious the first time. You pop up the next round with 1 single hit point and some sort of scar, which you choose. It's your character. Scar doesn't have any effect on your character's ability scores or anything like that. But you have this scar, and you get to choose from a list of premium talents. All right, so these premium talents, Shadow Dark doesn't have feats, it has talents, are things like when you attack with your favorite weapon, you upgrade the damage dice. So maybe it's a longsword is D8, now it does D10. That's the type of thing. When you get better, you might lose an eye or something, but you actually become a better archer and you score an additional damage die whenever you shoot with a bow. And so it's a narrative device where it doesn't take you out of the play, because making a death save round after round is just boring. You're just laying there rolling not to die. I hope the cleric saves me. One of my collaborators, Mark Seifter, who helped design Pathfinder 2, tells the story of how he's playing a Pathfinder game. This is his own game now. He's playing a game as a player, and his character was taken out, goes to negative hit points. And he waited so long to get to his next turn. He waited 1 turn, and then he went out and got a sandwich and came back. It shouldn't be that long. And I understand the concept of, the character's bleeding out. Are we going to be able to get to him? It's so tension-filled. It's tension-filled in a movie like Full Metal Jacket or Saving Private Ryan. It's not tension-filled when you're sitting at a table doing nothing. And so you get that premium feat. And the only way to unlock those feats is if you go to 0 hit points. So this encourages people to be more heroic, to run forward and challenge that monster, challenge that bad guy. Because if you go down, I went down, but I get rewarded for it. Until the final time, the third time you get taken out, you get to do one last action on which you get a critical success. So if it's a dragon, you get to stab that dragon for a critical success. If it's, I want to free the prisoner, I want to throw my dagger and free that prisoner so she's rescued, you succeed at that. And I think that's a cool way to give a character a dignified, honorable death. The character, they're heroes, they should have an honorable death. And then your character's really, really dies. However, there is going to be an option. There's going to be a lot of options, and you can choose Deathbringer mode where at 0 hit points you just die. You could choose that if you want. If you want to go hardcore like that, another option is you unlock the ability to get those premium talents only at 4th level. That's a rule for my own game. And you get that more lives, so to speak, the higher level you go. So that final death would be like open to 10th level characters. All right. So levels 1 to 3 at 0 points, you're just dead. Levels 4, 5, 6, you get your first life. Levels 7, 8, 9, you get a second life. And levels 10, you get that third life, which you would end at, do the
Okay, so
epic move.
I've got Crap Phone's got a question for you, which I'll bring up here in a second. But so that the epic death is not an option until that third time. So I can't be like, all right, I got my first death, I'm down. I'm at 0 hit points for the first time. I get to choose. I get to choose heroic death action, or if I get through this, I get to have this legendary ability, or is it has to be, it's like, all right, you're gonna get the extra talent, you're gonna get the extra talent, and you have to have the third in order to make it to that heroic death.
That's the way I imagine it going, but maybe we need to play test that. Maybe that's one of the things. Maybe you could just skip to heroic death. You just don't like this character anymore and you want to just go out epically.
Or maybe you
Why
want to give
not?
them the coolest ending ever. And because you never know when that opportunity is going to come up. That opportunity may come up when you're fighting the orc bandits instead of the great worm blue dragon.
Yeah, maybe. That's why we do play testing.
Here's playtesting is infinite. It's key 7. Let's take a look at he wanted to ask is it exactly 0 or 0 or less?
0 or less. 0 or less. Good
0 or
question.
less. I've got because I've actually got a little bit of personal experience there, a little anecdotal view on why I like that as much as I do. I'm a 3.5 guy. I've been a 3.5 guy for a very long time. And it is one of the absolute worst things on the planet. When you're under 0 hit points and above -10, because -10, you're dead. It's roll a D percentile. If you're 10 or less, you go to 0 hit points and you're unconscious, and you're stable. If it's anything over 10 on the percentile die, you lose a hit point. And if you get to -10, you die. Which means that you've just relegated that guy to 10 rounds of hoping somebody gets to him, or his entire turn is roll a percentile die, which is boring as hell. What it made me kind of see it differently was actually Cyberpunk Red. Now, my people know, but for your benefit, I didn't start with D&D. I started with Cyberpunk 2020. That was my first game. And
Deadly game.
Yes, I moved into Dungeons and Dragons from Cyberpunk 2020, but I started with Cyberpunk 2020. But Cyberpunk Red came out. I was super excited about it because I've been waiting for a new Cyberpunk game for a long time. But the Cyberpunk Red death mechanics is when you go to 0, the person's not out of the fight. They take extreme minuses to everything. Anytime they get hit, it's automatic critical injuries. Now, they still make the quote-unquote death save. They roll a die. They roll a D10. If it's under their body score, they're okay. Every round, they add a +1 to it. So the next round, it's +1. The next after that, it's +2. If they roll over their body, they're dead. That's it. They're extra spare parts for the rest of the people. Rip out their cyberware, throw their meat in the grinder, and turn it into Soylent Green because they're gone. But because being down does not mean they're out. It just means they're crippled. Now I get to have that guy who's sliding backwards with his arm busted, shooting at the bad guy. He's half dead. His rifle is finished, so he's pulled out his sidearm and he's emptying the 1911 with his back against the tree. And when the bad guys shoot him, it's just an automatic critical injury. So it's like they shoot him and, all right, well, now your arm just got blown off. Your hand got blown off. Your foot got blown off, but you're still conscious. You're still active, and you're still trying to fight until you fail that body roll. So at least it's not your turn is, oh, did you roll under your body? Okay, well, next person's turn. It's like you get to keep doing stuff. And you can just you can do that Boromir thing where, the arrows are slamming into you. It's like, all right, fine. I'm going to grab the spear and I'm going to drag myself up it and I'm going to stab this guy in the throat. But then I'm going to fail my body score after Aragorn gets over here because he doesn't have a speed heal. And when I heard about the Deathbringer mechanic, I was like, this is this brought into fantasy and perfectly laid out.
Thank you. That would actually be a cool mechanic too. You make a death save, and if you make the death save, you keep fighting until you fail the death save and die. That would be a better D&D mechanic. You know?
Absolutely. Which, by the way, Agile Monk, yes, I'm going to tell you this right now. He's emptied his 911 with his back to the wall, and it was in real life. So to me, that 100,000% counts. I'm just going to put that out there, man. If you were in that situation, respect. I don't care if you didn't hit anybody. Respect. But yeah, that's where that when that death mechanic clicked with me, I got to have it click with me twice. I was like, this is this by itself is a reason to play Deathbringer for me. So
And
did that design philosophy go through everything?
Yes. It does go through everything in terms of these are two things I hate. Waiting my turn, doing nothing on my turn. And that informed everything. Like, we have very few mechanics where characters are paralyzed. Because that is, you're just drooling on the ground, you can't do anything. I don't like spells that do that either. I don't like that spells that eliminate the player agency, because it's not fun. It's not fun. And also, waiting my turn is not fun, which is why in Deathbringer you get +2 if when the game master comes to you on your turn and says, "What do you want to do?" If your answer is, "I hit him with my sword," and you know what you want to do right away, you get +2 to do that thing. Because now the rest of the players are waiting for less time. So that philosophy did go all through Deathbringer. I'm not a patient person. I don't like waiting a long time. I reject the premise that role-playing games have to be long, that they have to be 4 hours, that combats just take a long time, and that's what it is. A combat takes 90 minutes, and that's just what it is. I want things to keep moving and the game to keep flowing naturally, narratively from one scene to another. And so that's the way I always think of things, is like, would this be cool? Would this be cool? Or would it make a cooler game experience? Because if it's not cool, if it's not fun to play, if it takes too long, if it extends people's turns too long, then I have a problem with it. I have a problem with it.
I think the word narrative actually fits quite nicely there, because when I said, "Hey, does this philosophy go through?" and this is my fault for not being clear, but it actually led into opening this up to a nice piece of discussion, is that narrative first mentality of, it's like, okay, not only are we going to make sure you can keep doing stuff so that you're staying part of the story, but we're going to give a narrative impetus for it. If that design philosophy is like, hey, how do we make sure that this not only gives me something to do at all times, but also gives me like a narrative reward for it? So where that makes me think back into, and why I think that this works well, I think that I'm using the word "I think," or the phrase "I think" 100 times right now, but that ability to have that death mechanic, let's just use that as the example since it's on the table already, I think that speeds up a turn by itself. Just like I see my Cyberpunk characters, their turns go faster than my D&D 3.5 characters. Because nobody is thinking about, man, I don't want to do this. I need to optimize my turn because I don't want to die. I'm going to be sitting here forever while somebody else thinks of something. So I better make sure I do the best. And if I end up dying, then I'm just going to be sitting here rolling my D percentile dice and going to get a Coke because I'm dead and there's nothing I can do. But when the end game is, okay, worst case scenario is I get to have a really cool, awesome moment with an automatic critical hit, or I'm never completely out of it, it incentivizes the player to continue making decisions and be like, no, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Well, who cares if I get shot up? I get blown to pieces. Who cares? I get to keep fighting until I fail my save. I get to keep doing crazy stuff, or I get to make that cool, over the top narrative. I get to take the spotlight and do the whole, and do the whole narrative or like cinematic moment. And I think about it this way, because if you've seen the movie Reign of Fire before, it's terrible, but have you seen it?
That's the dragon movie, right?
It's a dragon movie. It's like a modern dragon movie. It's kind of like zombie apocalypse meets the dragons show up instead of the zombies. And there was this really cool part in the trailer that was like one of the cool things. The big, brawny, badass guy goes jumping off of this thing with a big axe, and he's swinging at the dragon's head, right? And you watch the movie, and it's like a spoiler alert, guys, for the 20-year-old movie that had probably has like a 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. But he goes jumping and he's flying forward. He's got the big fireman's axe, and he's going to hit this dragon in the skull. And the dragon just eats him, and it breaks the axe in half, and it goes flipping over its back. And so it doesn't stop the dragon at all. But I have a theory that your D&D or your fantasy, your Deathbringer player is just as happy to be the guy who takes his last action to run and jump off the castle and just get eaten out of midair by the dragon as he is to be the guy who kills the dragon. Like, I think he's just as happy to get eaten out of midair, as long as he gets to get eaten out of midair and not just die with his back to the wall over on the crenellation somewhere.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. I've had players sacrifice themselves and do stuff. I get swallowed by the dragon, but as I go down his throat, I want to open up his throat with my sword. That's cool. It's cool.
It's 20 hit points, but it looks cool when that sword comes out while he's going down. Can he stick his middle finger out while he's at it?
And to me, that's more like with Dungeons & Dragons, what it's trying to do is replicate ancient myths, right? Starting with Beowulf. Beowulf dies fighting the dragon. He dies fighting the dragon. That's the last thing he does. He kills the dragon, but he himself dies. That's the way a boss character goes out. Oh, yeah. And we talk about heroic fantasy, but heroes are willing to sacrifice themselves for others. So it doesn't mean that your character has to die, but if they do die, it should be doing something cool and saving people or defeating some monster.
And I kind of like that with the scars, though I think I'd be crueler with the scars than you are. You're like, oh, cool, you get an extra bonus feat. You get to be more badass with your bow because you got your eye put out. I'm more along the lines of, it's like your penalty for going to 0 hit points is you have a permanent negative. Because I'm the world's most massive Tolkien fanatic, and all I think about is like, how do I turn my when the campaign is over and those last few surviving players have gone into their retirement? How do I make them more like Frodo? How do I make them sit there in the Shire and be like, I really need to go to the Undying Lands because I just can't get over these scars and injuries and stuff like that. I don't want them like, oh man, I'm the baddest of the bad. I want him to be like Audie Murphy was in real life. Audie Murphy in real life was horribly depressed because of the fame he got from World War II. To the point that if you go to his grave in Arlington National Cemetery, he does not have the gold wreath that you get for having the Medal of Honor. If you get a Medal of Honor recipient, you get gold leaf emblems on your gravestone. He doesn't have them. And he doesn't have a monument because his last wishes were like, when I'm dead, just make me a soldier like everyone else, because that's what I wanted to be my whole life. I'm just a guy who went out there and fought like everybody else. I just happen to be more famous for it. Maybe when I'm dead, leave me alone, is kind of the thought that I had with that. And like, how can you get that feeling narratively into a player character?
I don't know that you can. Yeah, I don't know if you can in terms of design mechanics. that's a thing that a player has to do and decide themselves. Their character's inner journey and outer journey. That would have to be, to me, that's the player's job.
And that's fair enough. I think I'd encourage it by their character, having, being peg leg Jack. That's my dream. My dream is one day to have a character who goes out like Captain Ahab. I want him lashed to the whale, going, coming up for air and still trying to stab it while he's hooked to it and he can't get away, just yelling, damn you, damn you, damn you, and stabbing it and all the way out. I really want to see a character go out that way one of these days.
That was at one point the rule was called from hell's heart I stab at thee. That was what the rule was called. Is you get to keep fighting even though you're dead and you're dragging your entrails.
You could see the way that my brain thought the second I saw that character, that mechanic. It really does. It touches me that there was a very that little Easter egg right there is there, because it's like, man, seriously, because that's the way my brain works, and I'm like, you literally call this basically the Ahab rule, which is awesome, and it is. I've been carrying on about it here for 20 minutes because it is really it is by far my favorite piece of Deathbringer that I've seen thus far.
Thank you. It's rules like that and the death dice that people, I think on the surface they'll say, well, this is just another retro clone, or this is just another 5e simplified thing. But it's when you play it, you'll see a difference. You'll see a difference. Incentives are very powerful. And when you give people an incentive for doing brave, heroic things, they will do more brave, heroic things. If you incentivize people for taking their turn quickly, the game will move more quickly.
Yeah. And I think, absolutely. I believe that it incentivizes the player to keep moving because they at least get something for that loss. Let me hit this chat real quick. See what we got here. I've been ignoring our wonderful folks. Crap phone. At least one last heroic action with the critical success, or you make the die roll and have a small chance of life continuing. I think that goes back to when we were talking about whether or not you should have that as an option rather than you have to get to where you're on your third death to do it. I think he is agreeing with that there. Let's see here. Shellback over there. I mean, you want to talk about a trooper. Shellback's up here joining us in chat on he is joining us in chat on 3 hour sleep. So he is out here on it. What we got with Agile Mode? Biggest challenge, players' turns being extended too long, and fixing that is and will always be a win. So I do believe that is just another piece of, that you got to look at that as a praise of your design, because in my opinion, just from looking at it, I've not played Deathbringer, obviously, because I've not sat down and played it with you while you've been play testing and the people you've sent it out to, and it hadn't been sent out to us yet. But from what I've seen, just thinking, processing what I know about the game, what you said about the game, I do think that is one of the shining moments in the design is everything seems to be built around the idea of pushing people to not sit around and think and get analysis paralysis over their character's actions.
That's correct. That's correct. You even get experience points for things like making plans quickly and not making simple and not overly complex plans. Being the first to kick in a door.
Yep.
And I'm also toying with the idea that experience points, instead of being rewarded at the end of the session, are rewarded immediately.
Yes.
And you can level up in the middle of the game. That's an idea that I've been toying with. Just like giving, because the player, this comes from being a teacher for a long time, right? So I noticed that, yeah, I'm an English teacher, or I was up until a month ago. And I noticed something really interesting with teaching high school students to write. You know what they love? They love stamps. They love, especially students who are struggling. If you give them a writing prompt and they're writing and writing and writing, they write for 10 minutes and you put a stamp on their work, they just love that and they write more. You know, the idea that, well, if you got to do this because in 3 months you're going to get a report card and, you know, it might be 75 when you want an 80. That's way in the future, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but you give somebody a stamp, you tell somebody, oh, that's a good sentence. Then they want to continue right now. You're rewarding them. They see how they're being rewarded. It's not coming at some later time. So I'm seriously thinking of making experience points, and this is again why we do play testing. And experience points is a thing where you could always make adjustments. But I've never seen an experience point system like that where you're rewarded right away for I kick in the door, you get an experience point. You know,
I'm not sure if I would go with that one. The thing that I think that one of the things I love, and this is part of the reason why I love the death mechanic as much as I do, is it's not a meta currency. It's a narrative currency. It is a currency for the character in game. It is an in-game reward for that character for making the heroic sacrifice. Whereas, like, oh, you get your experience points right now. To me, that I would think that might be an immersion breaking meta currency. Like that's one I really don't like meta currency where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to give you an inspiration token. It's like, well, you give me, oh, I'm getting a token. It's like, yeah, it's cool. It plays to the player, but to me, it's very much. It brings me out of my character. It brings me out of the game into the gamer, and that's one of those things I think about. It's like if I'm getting experience points, it's like I don't go over there and open that door and let's just say I locked myself in this office and I have to go over there and do my little trick where I jiggle that handle to where it pops loose so I can get out. Nothing goes dang and gives me experience points right there. Yes, I get a little bit better at it every time I'm stupid and lock myself in the office, but there's no immediate reward of dang, I got more experience. So when I think of something like that, I'm like, it's pulling me back out of the game into the gamer, and I'm not sure that that's something that I would. I think in playtesting, I think you'd see that ends up being a constant interruption, especially when you get those players. Yeah, well, especially when you get that player who's like, at the end of every session, like, do we get experience points? Do we get experience points? Did I get IP this session? Do we get a reward? Can you imagine? It's like, all right, I picked the lock. Do I get experience points? How many experience points do I get for picking the lock? Well, if I lock the door again and I pick it again, can I get more experience? You're going to get that one guy who wants to go out there and lock the door, pick it, lock the door, pick it, lock the door, pick it, to try and rack up experience 1 point at a time.
It's true. This is why you do playtest games, because you want to find people that can try to break your game.
Absolutely. Eclectic Goat, you've been on her show before. She actually offers a service as a game editor that's called Break Your Game, where she has a specific playtest group, and each player in that playtest group is a different kind of person who tries to break your game in a different way. It's very important. Let's hit the rest of these super chat, or not super chats, but the rest of these chats real quick, because I do want to talk about the design then refine philosophy and how that was used in Deathbringer. Before we end up losing track of time again here. Let's see here. Halfling Torchbearer, Beowulf, Arthur, even Frodo Baggins, they sacrifice everything. And that is 100% 100% true. And apparently I need to have a conversation with our Halfling Torchbearer. Just so you know, man, I have 2 first edition, first print copies of the Silmarillion on that bookshelf back there, along with first edition, first print copies of the entire trilogy, among everything else Tolkien ever wrote. But I have one that has the price on it, the map on it, everything for the Silmarillion. It's basically a brand new cover back there. And if I found another one, I would buy it too. So I read the Silmarillion for the first time when I was 9, which you want to talk about something that's fun. Seeing a 9-year-old read through the Silmarillion, I'll bet you that was fun for my dad to watch from the doorway. Let's see here. Shellback scars causing the players grief during play, but granting a boon for the next generation of characters. Yeah, I mean, I think that the scars are permanent in real life. They need to be permanent in game, to be perfectly honest, in all ways. Let's see here. Super chat from Agile Monk. Thank you, sir. All right, guys, we're going to have a thing here. We're both Dan. I'm going to assume that this is for my guest and not for me. But there are 2 Daniels in the chat tonight. Tell us your thoughts on the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, and his life and work. I will pass that on to our English teaching friend.
So I think Joseph Campbell's work is a must read for a player that wants to make a really good character. And if you're not familiar, people aren't familiar with Joseph Campbell's work, his concept of the hero's journey is that all heroes in mythology go through an arc. They leave home. They start home in a place of comfort, a place of familiarity, like the Shire. Then they get charged with a quest. They leave Kansas or the Shire, and they go down the yellow brick road, or in the case of the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings films, Samwise says, Mr. Frodo, if we take one more step, I will have gone farther than I have ever gone before. Right? So they cross that threshold. It is called crossing the threshold. Now and they're in a dangerous world. They've taken a path to adventure. Along this path, they will meet companions that join them. They will have a boon. A boon is some sort of magic item. It's a ruby slipper or a magic wand or a lightsaber or a ring that gives them some sort of power. They will meet a mentor, a wise figure who will advise them, a Gandalf, an Obi-Wan. And they will face challenges, face off against the Dark Lord, and then eventually return home and undergo apotheosis, which means they evolve into a wiser, a more powerful but wiser hero. And when they return home, they have totally changed. They pay a price and they have changed. So Frodo loses his finger and Luke Skywalker loses his hand, and they're never the same. They're never the same. And they find often that they can't return home because home doesn't have the same feeling it once did. And that's why Frodo goes off to the, across the sea there. So
absolutely.
Here's the thing. I was talking. I think I was on talking on the Eclectic Goat stream about this. We were talking about Critical Role.
Yes.
And I talked to those guys, and we're talking about the Matt Mercer effect and so forth. And I made the observation that because people are always like, well, it's fake. It's got to be scripted, and they're like, no, it's not. And the point I brought up, I asked them point blank, do you read Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey? Yes. I said, have you read Aristotle's Poetics? Yes. Did you read Sid Field's screenplay? Yes. Actors go through a training regimen and they all read Aristotle's Poetics, which is the history of it's drama. How, that you understand. If you read that book, you understand why is The Godfather like the greatest movie of all time. Because it hits all those ideas. And if you're familiar with the hero's journey, you can make a better character because you realize, well, I got to create an arc. So many questions I get on my channel. How do I get my players to take the hook? werewolves are attacking the town, and the players say, well, that's interesting. We'll go to the next town. They'll be able to handle the werewolves. No, they're not. You're the heroes. Players oftentimes with these games, what they do is they try to explore the world. They're like, I notice this with younger players all the time, that they do weird things. Like I describe a tree and it's eerie, and they're like, I attack the tree. They're testing the world to see where the boundaries are, like in a video game. It's like, oh, if I kill that NPC, what happens? That's why they
Can I
do
jump
it.
over this mountain, or am I hit an invisible
Yeah.
wall?
And so if you read the hero's journey, you understand that your character is not a bunch of stats on this on a sheet. When I'm making a character, the first thing I think of, I'll give you an example with a Call of Cthulhu character. I made a guy, I was given a bunch of, we played a game where we were given a bunch of choices for characters. No one wanted to be this one guy. And I picked this guy, an actor. He has, and you got the skills points assigned to acting things, and you get some extra skill points. And everyone assigned, everyone wanted to be the gangster. Everyone wanted to be the police guy, the detective. Everyone wanted a gun. I made a guy, I used all my spare points for things like credit rating and art history and stuff that nobody would ever pick. So I made a guy that was deliberately couldn't fix a car, couldn't drive a car, couldn't throw a punch, couldn't shoot anything, but he can act like he does know how to do everything. and
He's
and
not a
and I
lawyer.
was
He plays one on TV.
and I was like, okay, what kind of voice does this guy have? Probably a mid-Atlantic accent. And I named him Grant Revell, after Cary Grant. And I immediately gave him this clipped mid-Atlantic accent like this. And I'm thinking in terms of, what's the character's voice? What does this guy want? What sets him off? What would he kill for? What would he die for? That's a character.
Mm-hmm.
Your sheets on the stats are the least important part of the character to me. If I play in someone else's game, I'm like, just give me the character sheet, but tell me what kind of character you want to play. And that's why, everybody, you read the hero's journey, so you can have a character that is going on a journey that doesn't just want to level up. They want something in the world. And now you're going to work with the game master. When the game master presents you opportunities, like, do you want to go with Obi-Wan to search for Princess Leia, or do you want to go to the academy to learn fly an X-wing? You're not going to choose to go to the academy and let Obi-Wan solve the problem himself.
You're gonna shoot womp rats.
I think the hero's journey is important for players to read. I think a lot of players and a lot of dungeon masters, they read a lot of game books, but they don't read a lot of books. They should probably read some more books.
No doubt about that. Now, it's kind of funny because we talked about the Hickman Revolution and the changes it brought about. And it's almost like a horseshoe theory of gaming if you think about it. Which, by the way, thank you, Mr. Halfling Torchbearer. I do appreciate you joining as a member. I'm going to give you a little hint here. A little aside. Sorry to take the second to do this. Every Monday, I do a very, very satirical series called Intelligence is a Dump Stat, where I do 2 levels of mockery. One, I mock people for having opinions that I think are stupid and saying stupid stuff online about gaming. The second thing I do is I mock all of us having a tendency to grossly overreact to these things by overreacting to them. It's like, people get way too upset about fantasy games and about something that's really not that important, and I overreact on purpose. However, every year we do the Golden Dummies, where we pick the worst of the worst hot takes every year. And I have a Tolkien Tard take, because if you say something stupid about Tolkien, you will be featured on that show. And I have a special award for the person who says the dumbest thing about Tolkien each year. So stick around for that. It'll be in December. But no, what you're saying about the hero's journey, it's kind of a horseshoe theory, because we went from a wargaming group that wanted to basically have a war game about an individual soldier. And we ended up in the dungeon crawl, hex crawl, adventure module group, the mega dungeon group, the West Marches style, the Caves of Chaos style, go out, hit the cave, get back to the keep. Very much a character sheet style. And the narrative came out of that. And a lot of it came out because Gary Gygax was very well read and also said, hey, look, here's Appendix N. Here's a list of things you should read to teach you how these characters should behave. We've almost gone all the way back around with this new group of modern players who don't read anything and have been raised on the idea of video games where your character is just a collection of stats and specials and abilities, and you do whatever the heck you want to in the game. And you ended up with this point where the ultra new school and the ultra old school are almost coming together and hate each other for it. But both of them have the same problem where, like you said, they don't look at their characters as characters. They don't look at them as a person in the world. And if they see, quote unquote, an adventure hook, it's not, here's something interesting happening in my world, and I would naturally be interested in that. I would naturally take an interest in it. If I'm walking into Walmart and I see a fire truck explode in the parking lot, I'm going to take notice in it. And if I can help, I'm probably going to go run over there and help. It's happening in my real world. I exist here. If it happens in a basic D&D dungeon crawl game, or if it happens in a 5e game and a fire truck explodes, I'm not going over that fire truck. That's a character hook. You're trying to railroad me. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to explore this Zaxby's parking lot with no cars in it.
Yeah. That goes back to exploring the world. They want to explore the boundaries of the world.
Yeah, there you go, Halfling. They wait for the world instead of being part of it.
Oh, that's very well said. That
is extremely well said. I'm stealing that, by the way. You said it in my chat, copyright, trademark.
Yeah, I'm photographing that. Hold on. Let me get
we are stealing that one.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's probably gonna end up on an episode of Dungeon Craft. Thanks, Halfling Torchbearer. I can't say that I'll remember to credit it to you. I'll probably just credit it to myself. But you know.
You know what he's also going to do? As long as he doesn't take credit for as long as you don't take credit for Deathbringer on Ice, Shellback deserves that one.
But I was talking with that about that on the Eclectic Goat stream last night too, about like these players. Some are so passive, they're waiting for the adventure to happen like it's a movie. They don't understand that they are the ones driving. They're the ones driving the action. They're the protagonists. They have to protag. That should be what they do.
They have to protag.
Yeah.
So,
oh, hey, Halfling. Oh, it's Spawn. Oh, no wonder it's a brilliant idea. Hey, James.
I don't know this person, but apparently he's a member now, so I'm going to have to get to know him.
James Spawn is the author of the White Box Cyclopedia and Deathbringer. He's one of the authors of Deathbringer.
Hey,
so brilliant guy.
Well, I mean, we've been waxing on about the fact that there's a lot of brilliant mechanics in Deathbringer, and I'm gonna be straight up honest about it. It is the first time I've been excited about somebody. Like I was like, I'll get a copy of Shadow Dark eventually. It'll sit on my shelf. I'll read it. I'll look into it. I have no interest in playing Shadow Dark. None. It doesn't appeal to me. Same thing with a lot of Kickstarters. It's like, it's another Kickstarter. It's like, that's a cool idea. I backed Agile Monk's Kickstarter because I think that Exandria has a lot of really cool stuff to offer. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff that's in it. And I looked at Deathbringer, and I'm like, when I started learning more about the game, it was one of the very first times I actually got excited about a new game coming out, because it's a new game. It's not just a new slant on something. And it's not a new game in the fact where it's like, oh, I created this system that's half baked, or I focused entirely on trying to, escape a certain use of the D20, or I want to use 2D20 or 2D12 or 6D6 or whatever the case may be. But it was new ideas and it was new philosophy being brought into the game, as opposed to just trying to make a new game to say it's new. So that's one of those things that that actually got me a little excited about it, because I'm thinking of the ideas that are being brought forward as ones that solve problems, and that's one of those things that is important to me. Is, did you solve a problem that I had?
Well, it's very flattering, because Shadow Dark is a great game.
It is. I'm not arguing that Shadow Dark is not a great game, but Shadow Dark doesn't offer me anything that I don't get elsewhere. That's what it comes down to me. It doesn't offer me anything that I don't get somewhere else, or that I can't very easily homebrew. Not in terms of mechanics, but in terms of something that, like, a feeling, or like there's enough. Like, I'm going to buy Deathbringer just to crib as much of it from it as I can, and it will end up in various forms in my 3.5 games, in my Cyberpunk games, in my Call of Cthulhu games, in my One Ring when I get around to playing it games, and even into my own D30 system that I've been working on. It's going to get cribbed maliciously because it's worth stealing from. Oh, I think
that's excellent, because that's the way I meant to design it. I want it to be like Hamburger Helper, where you could steal things and use it in whatever system. If you like 3.5 or Pathfinder 2 better, you can, and you can use many of the mechanics in those games as well.
There you get one from Mikey D. Just playing the trifold was fun. I can only imagine an entire book of Deathbringer. Well, I don't think you're going to have to imagine for very long, because I'm pretty sure he smashed his goal somewhere into. I'm pretty sure that the home run that you hit on Backer Kit measures somewhere in the 500 or 600 foot range. I think you cleared the monster. And
yeah, it was very successful. It's probably the second or third most successful this year on Backer Kit. So it is crazy. It's crazy. So we're really excited about making a great game. So are we going to get to the 7 keys?
Yes, that's actually what we're going to right now. I was actually getting ready to segue
refine and
over to
design.
that. We're looking at refine, then design. So for folks, it segued for me. I do greatly appreciate that. Refine, then design. What is refine, then design? It is simply, or design, then refine, rather. It is basically the game design equivalent of write your damn book. Write your damn book. That's what it is. They say when you're writing a novel that you need to finish writing the book. That is the hardest thing. Quit trying to go back and perfect the first chapter before you finish the story. Quit trying to rewrite this, rewrite that, focusing on this minutia. Get a complete product, then go back and finish it and keep refining it after you've already designed your entire game. That was the topic of yesterday's video. And that is the topic that I brought Professor DM on to talk about, is the refinement process of Deathbringer. 10 years. When did you have, we can't call it even alpha. When did you have the first complete Deathbringer rules together in that process? When did you have the first thing where you're like, this is a game, now I need to start finishing it?
That would be with the Trifold version, which was on Drive Through RPG, which went on to become I don't know, Mithril, Adamantine, whatever their highest level seller is, went all the way to like no, it didn't go to number one. I think it went to number two. I think it's still in the top 40. But that was the first finished version of the game, and it was finished by Brandish Gillum of Runehammer, who pushed me. He's like, we gotta do this thing. It could be, and he's the one. It could be like a menu, and it'd be really cool. And he's the one that pushed me to finish that. And then I went and I kept refining it. And the next kick in the pants was James Spahn, who said, this could be really good, but it sucks. Let me have a shot at it. It could be good, but it's not a real game yet. It's not a real game yet. Let me take a crack at it. And then he did a draft, and then I revised that draft, and I gave it back to Brandish Gillum, and now it's going to Mark Seifter. So all these people sort of had their hands on various drafts. And it's been written a number of times. And in the middle of it too, I went down to 3 stats or 4 stats at one point, and then like for the people that have been on my Patreon, they saw a character sheet with only 3 stats. I'm like, why do characters need this many? We could crush intelligence and wisdom into the same stat. They're redundant. And then eventually I came to the conclusion that to just make it align with Shadow Dark, because Shadow Dark it's so dominant in terms of its popularity that, and my audience and Kelsey's audience, there's so much crossover in our audiences. Like, she's a patron of mine, and we play games together. We played games together, and like her tastes are my tastes. Our audience, why ask them to choose between 2 different game systems? Let's make them compatible. And so that's where we got to what I call the Borgification of Deathbringers. Like, so how you had Mörkborg and then Cyborg and Pirate Borg, and Pirate Borg is actually outselling Mörkborg now. Yeah. But it's just, we're going to use the same engine, and that's what I decided to do with Shadow Dark. And once that happened, so many design problems got solved, because it was like, oh, now I know how characters will level up. It's just like Shadow Dark. Right?
Which is kind of funny, because I don't think, if you didn't have a complete picture already put together prior to Shadow Dark coming out and being the thing that it was, you wouldn't have been able to make that adaptation. If you were still fooling around with how I want to do my character creation model, that wouldn't have happened. I do think it's a little funny, though, that you went the opposite direction I did. You're like, oh, let's get down to 3 stats, kind of like a Free League, where you're like, oh, I can combine wisdom and intelligence. When I started my design process, I immediately broke my stats out. I broke my stats out into 4 physical and 4 mental. I split it even further. I changed charisma into presence. I made basically my HP and my initiative is based on both a mental and a physical stat, with a formula to bring the 2 together. Because I'm like, well, HP, this shouldn't be just like my physical constitution. This should also be my mental resolve. This should be how, like, because maybe I'm a scrawny guy who, I'm a scrawny Poindexter nerd who, doesn't have a lot of physical strength, but I'm just not, I refuse to lose. That guy should be able to fight through just as much as the big brawny guy who happens to be kind of a coward. So I started splitting that stuff up, because I thought a lot of the stats covered too much. But
yeah, it's interesting.
I do think it's interesting that you brought them together and then split them back.
I did, yeah. And the reason I did that is because 2 reasons. I think Dungeons and Dragons is not a game, it's a language now. Mm-hmm. It's a language, and Pathfinder, different editions, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Lamentations of the Flame, Princess Deathbringer, dialects of the same language. They're dialects. If you know how to speak Spanish, you learn in school. It's going to be different depending on the country you go to, but you'll be able to get along. You go to a convention, you never played Pathfinder 2, and you look at that character sheet. You play Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to know what's going on. You know, I got to roll a 20-sided die, and I got to roll 16 or better, 15 or better. So, yeah, and the more you think of it, the more. And I've read books like Playing at the World, Peterson's history of role-playing games, where he gets into it. Like Dave Arneson had like 20 stats, and Gary Gygax's like, no, he broke them down in 6, and there's a reason why. And there's also a reason why original Dungeons and Dragons does not have skills. The skills that develop today, there's a reason why they weren't there in the first place. So then when you start thinking about it, when I started thinking about it, I was like, the reason I would like less stats is to simplify it for newer players. But the more I thought of it, newer players aren't going to play this game. And 2, I think strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma are so familiar now. They're so iconic that people kind of know what they mean. And they look at the character sheet. It's got the 3 to 18 ability scores. Originally in Deathbringer, I was just going to go with just the bonus. We're just going to use the bonus. But I realized something. A 13 or a 12 charisma doesn't make really a difference in terms of your bonus, but it makes a huge difference to the player playing it. And 6 just seems the perfect number. Some people just want to seem like they're a little better at something. It makes them happy. So, and then you can have those 3 to 18 ability scores give you little tiny increments that, I got a plus, 1 on my charisma from plus, 14 to 15. Oh, I improved. Well, you didn't get a better bonus for that, right?
Yeah.
So it actually allows you to, it allows the experience point system. It allows you to slow down character improvements. So the more you start taking apart, the more you realize, okay, this is why it's worked so long in the first place. And that is how I arrived back at the original 6 stats. I was like, there is a cognitive leap that you have to make if you're going to learn a new system. And Free League systems are great. Blade Runner's a great game. They all run on the same dice pool kind of system. So many players just won't play it because it's not, the game they recognize. It's because of sunk cost. I spent so much time learning this game. I know how to play it. I don't want to spend all this time learning this game. And then you're forcing the players, you're forcing players and potential customers to choose. Whereas I went with, this is what people know. And having that many stats and having a stat called dexterity that doesn't really deal with how good you are with your fingers, because that's what dexterity is. Dexterity should help you play the piano.
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't have anything to do with how well you shoot a bow. I'm an archer. I could shoot a bow. It doesn't have to do with your dexterity. It's not like someone who is, I can't juggle, but I can shoot a recurve bow with high degree of accuracy.
I mean, honestly, a recurve bow is more strength and I guess whatever falls into perception, because it's about being able to line up the bow, but it's really a matter of strength of being able to hold it taut and hold it steady.
Yeah, and longbows back at the time, longbows like English longbows, you had to have tremendous upper body strength to be able to even pull it back. But ultimately, these stats, maybe they don't make sense, but immediately players recognize them in Dungeons & Dragons, and I was just like, you know what? Let's just go with that. And then we can make it compatible with every other old school module, because I always get asked on Dungeon Craft years and years now, how do you convert? Does this thing convert to 3E? Can you take the keep on the board? Can you take the Caves of Chaos and convert it to 3E? And I'm always like, yeah, just use the same stats. Use the same stats. It's going to work virtually. You don't need to do a 5E update. You know, the Kobold has 2 hit points. It's going to be dead in one shot. You know, it doesn't really, but people, they really need I don't know. It makes them feel comfortable to know they're doing it right.
That's
You know,
fair.
so
That's definitely a fair point. And I see that. You know, there's a as a poor orc child said, "Don't reinvent the wheel."
Halfling
There's
Torchbearer says that the sense of improvement is important. As important as actual improvement. Yes, it's true.
absolutely. I mean, there's 100%. I'm a salesman by trade, so perception is reality. That is the that is what sales is all about. Perception is reality. It does not matter who is right. It matters who perceives themselves to have the correct outcome. So when I tell people, it's like, you may be 100,000% right selling a mortgage to a customer, that your financial analysis may be 1,000% correct, and they may be totally wrong. It doesn't matter. They're going to make their decision based on how they perceive this to be. They perceive you to be talking down to them and trying to rip them off, and that's the reality that they live. So same thing, you know, with the perception is, I don't have to learn anything new. Perception is 6 stats, D20, roll high, add the bonus. AC is a fixed number. This is the perception. And even if that's all there is to it. And it's like, I perceive myself to get better. I went from 14 to 15 charisma. No, I didn't get better. Mechanically, I'm identical to the 14, but I feel like I got better. So therefore I improved.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
That's
sense.
right. Yeah.
So how many times do you revise Deathbringer? How many revisions? Let's go way back into the deep past here. At one point in time, let's play the truth here. Deathbringer was your homebrew rules. These were things that these were a collection of things that you did to make your game better. And they eventually evolved into, this is better. And then they eventually evolved into a game that you put on paper. And then they eventually evolved into your backer kit, you know, the game that you put together for backer kit. How many times did Deathbringer, how many iterations of Deathbringer are there? How many, I guess you could say, how many negative editions of Deathbringer exist?
At least 20.
Hmm.
And they're all on Patreon. You're on Patreon, so you can dig them up. I mean, at least 20 different editions. It took a long time. It took a long time and many years. And I've been hacking games. I have a 30-year campaign, and that's where it emerged from. And I've been hacking that thing and changing the rules and changing the rule systems we play with, but keeping the characters the same for 30 years. You know,
Jeez.
so and then and really, since I arrived pretty much that BX is the ultimate game, I learned that was the first game I ever played 40 years ago. Is it 45 years ago? So I've been rewriting this, you know, the same things. It went through an enormous amount of editions, and you know, I am hosting the Annie Awards on next Friday, not this Friday, a week
Yeah.
from tomorrow. And I was on a stream with them and talking about some of the great games that won awards last year, and some were nominated again this year. Land of Eam, Dolmenwood, these games, I asked them, how long did it take you? 12 years, 11 years of development. That's how long it takes to bring a game into the world. I mean, it may take less time for people who are, you know, unique geniuses, but to bring a game, because the creation of a game and bringing it to fruition and market is a multi-step process, which requires many, many people. And we're
Yeah.
still not done with it. You know, we're still, you know, still Mark's got to edit it.
And this is part of the reason why, when you look at like a Wizards of the Coast or a Paizo or any of the major publishing houses, or Chaosium even, or even Artel Sorian, which is a pretty small operation, they have teams of designers to get games out in 4 or 5 years. Teams. One guy, or even a guy with help trying to put together a game. That's like, this is not, I guess a piece that we could take away from this is, if you think that you built a game in 2 years that's ready to go ahead and throw out there on DriveThruRPG that's going to change the whole world, you're not correct. But at least you have designed. So now we can refine. A lot of people don't even get to that point. Did you ever struggle with that? I mean, you're an English guy. You're an English teacher, which tells me that you're at least something of a writer, because I can't imagine ever going into being an English teacher and not being a writer, at least as a hobby. And have you ever seen somebody who tries to piecemeal it, does not write the complete product, and go back and fix it, who has ever been successful in making a complete product? Somebody who tries to perfect each chapter or each section of the game one at a time and finally gets to a complete product. Have you ever seen somebody successfully do it that way?
I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to anyone else's creative process. I mean, I do know that Brandish Gillum, Runehammer, he has created games and illustrated his games and done the layout for his games completely by himself. To me, that's like genius level thinking. But he is able to hold, he's able to hold the whole game in his head at the same time. And it is, writing a role-playing game is about the most difficult thing you could do. I would say, if anyone's looking to be in this industry, what you should start out designing monsters, then start designing scenarios, then work your way up to role-playing games. So Kelsey Dion, Shadow Dark, she's a good example she was writing scenarios for DM's Guild, for 15 years before she attempted to write her own game. She's another, it took 20 years overnight, an overnight success story that took 20 years. You really, learning how a monster works is very instructive. To design a whole game is really, really difficult. And the only reason I was able to do it is, I'll tell you an interesting story. I'm at a convention, and there was a panel of writers. They were gonna have a writing panel. Stephen Glicker is on there. And Brandish Gillum, Runehammer, was supposed to be on the panel, and then he couldn't make it. And there was one other person. So the guy running the convention turns to me and he says, "We need a panelist to talk about, that writes role-playing games." He didn't show up, so I want you to do it. You be on the panel. And I said, "I can't be on your panel on writing." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I'm a terrible writer." And then he said, "What do you teach anyway?" And I said, "Writing." I know I'm just not that good. And I know I've had students who have become professional newspaper writers, wrote for Spin Magazine, Metal Edge. They became The Advocate. They became writers. And I always knew they were better than me. So what I learned through the whole process is that I'm not the best. I'm good at certain things, but I'm not the best writer. I'm not the best editor. I'm not the best at layout. So I need people that can do those things to collaborate with me. And I have sons, as I was out for pizza with my sons, and when they saw the Kickstarter numbers coming in, they're like, "What percentage of this are you getting?" how come you're not getting the whole thing? And they're like, you should and I'm like, you don't understand that other people, this would not be possible if I didn't have a team of people. I would have nothing, so part of it is my success is realizing after a certain amount of drafts, I needed help from James Spahn and Brandish and Mark. Mark is looking over at, and he has so many insights. He's like, we could do this. And it's like all his ideas are better. So you really do need the right team to make now, if you want to make a one-page role-playing game, a short role-playing game, that's different. You want to put it up on drive-through, it's 2 pages long, which, by the way, is a cool idea. Like, a lot of people make 1-page or 2-page role-playing games and they illustrate them. I think that's awesome. Like, I think that's terrific. But if you want to do something like have a Kickstarter, a backer kit that raises that much money and contains like miniature figures and terrain and you want to build it out, part of the refining part we got to do. I'm in promotion mode now, but we got to do play testing. Then we got to actually assemble these books, and we got to do fulfillment. Then it goes to retail. Then I have to do promotion for the retail. Then I have to, and then this is the thing. In the business, the retail life of a game is called the tail. Like how long a game lasts until you need a new edition, because people aren't, because it starts out there and it gradually goes there. And to have a tail at all, to make a game that actually people play, because that's one of the things you got to decide. And I've been accused, I read the internet and it's like, this is just a money grab. He just wants to grab a bunch of money and he doesn't care if anyone plays the game. There are a lot of games that I've seen raise $1 million and nobody plays them.
Yeah.
So to not be that, you have to have virtual VTT integration. You have to have a network of people, organizations that are going to run your game conventions. You're going to have a license that allows people to design their own stuff, because it's that grassroots lateral design that's actually going to make the game sustainable. That's a whole other step in the life of a game, of the refining process. And then of course if the game does live, it's going to have other additions. It'll continue to be refined forever.
Oh yeah. And that goes back to the 7th key. The 7th key is playtesting is infinite. Not playtesting is really important until you get your game out. Not playtesting is really important now and you got to do a lot of it. It's infinite. It does not stop. All putting out the first edition of your game is the next step in playtesting second edition. Second edition is just playtesting third edition. It goes on forever. It is constantly being polished and tweaked because these are labors of love. I mean, that makes me laugh. I sit here with you. You say, it's like, man, if I really had to put like a -20 edition of Deathbringer, it was 15 years ago. Let's do some math, folks. Let's assume every dime goes to Professor DM. All of it. Dan Masters gets every dime. There's no extra help. He doesn't have to pay for books. They're just going to magic out of the air. We got 1100000. We got $1.1 million. We divide that out by 10, and we divide that out by 12. I'm sorry, I just messed that up entirely. I need to multiply this by 0.66 because we said 15, not 10. Congratulations. Is it a bad income if he put every single dime in his pocket? No. $6,000 a month is not a terrible income by any stretch of the imagination. But if you think somebody's going to dedicate 15 years of their life to make $72,000 a year one time. I mean, you may as well go get yourself a degree in underwater basket weaving, because you can get that in 4 years and you can make $72,000 in 15 years. I mean, that's nothing. That is nothing. This is not that always makes me laugh. Oh, it's a cash grab is when you take 6 months to put together yet another clone of the rules encyclopedia, slap a couple of pictures on top of it, throw it up on Lulu, and try and get $50 a cover for it. That's a cash grab. Or you duplicate 5e and you put a slap coat of paint on it. You put a slap coat of primer and put a zombie apocalypse coat on top of it, and you throw it out there, hoping people will give you a $200,000 Kickstarter or something in something you made in 6 months. That's a cash grab. A cash grab is not something that somebody spends decades making. That rant over on that one. I do have two important questions for you, but we're going to start with the first one because we're coming up on the end here. 7 keys. There's 7 keys out there. Design then refine is what I brought you on to talk about. We did talk about that for a while here. And it is, even in the early part when we were just talking about Deathbringer, you can see how that has come across in the evolution of these mechanics. The evolution of the things that are unique comes from the fact that you had something complete and now you can focus on those little things to really set the game apart. But out of the 7, what is the one that you think is most important, and what is the one that you think really speaks the most to what you did with Deathbringer?
Is collaborating one of the steps?
It is not. Collaborating is not. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't give you credit for bringing in other people.
What's the step before and after the refine and design? I mean, that's the one that I've done the most.
Is design then
refine. It's over and over and over again. Yeah.
I tell you what.
What's the one before and after?
Before is what we had last week, which was think first in settings, then in systems. Basically, putting the feel of the world ahead of the mechanics. Thinking first in what type of game you're trying to make, then that. The habit 5 or key 5 that comes after, I got to be careful there because habits are copyrighted. they're trademarked. But the feel is more important than the real. So let's go down the 7 real quick. First one's be well read. The second is know your niche. The third is to think first in settings and then in systems. The fourth, of course, is design then refine. The fifth is the feel is more important than the real. The sixth is to think abductively. And then the 7th is that playtesting is infinite. That is the 7 keys that every designer has to have, whether they work alone or as a group. And yes, it absolutely is. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to add that as a bonus key because I do have a bunch of bonus tips that are out there. I put them out as shorts in the interim weeks. And collaboration probably is going to be there, and that's going to hurt a lot of us who've been working on these games by ourselves.
It's really important if you're going to if you want to do a mass appeal game. The step I spend most time in is refining, designing and refining. The feel is more important than the real. That has to do with that definitely. Deathbringer is vibes. Deathbringer's vibes. And if you look at trends in these games like Pumpkin Spice, which is also on BackerKit, they're one of my BackerKit colleagues. It's a sort of you play a witch in a magical coffee shop, and you're making lattes and stuff, and it's like a cozy core game, and you'll have a ghost cat and stuff like that. That is vibes. Dungeon Crawler Carl, which was Backer Kid's biggest. I mean, it's all vibes. Like it's based on that the Dungeon Crawler Carl series of novels. And the art really looks great. It looks hilarious. And it's very meta. It's a meta game about a meta game, where you're a dungeon explorer in a role-playing game. And Deathbringer, what do they all have in common? They are all mostly vibes. Deathbringer is trying to get back to the Savage Sword of Conan, heavy metal magazine, Thunder the Barbarian, 80s. All the hair looks 80s. All the pectoral muscles look like, 80s. So that is a big one. But weirdly, I didn't design a game to be popular, and I didn't know that that was a step. I just that's what I think was cool. And then when I approached, I met with a lot of publishers, and Roll for Combat, like Stephen Glicker just got it immediately. He's like, this is what this is. It's dirty 80s. It's like Highlander. It's kind of, it's like, and that's like his favorite movie. And that's, I think the collaboration could be crushed into design and refine, because you need other pairs of eyes to see what you can't see. And so many of the ideas and ones that you mentioned, you like that death mechanic. I first proposed it to Kelsey. We were just playing a game together on a vacation. And I was like, you know what I think would be a cool death mechanic is like if you die, but you get to drag your entrails around. And she's like, that is a good mechanic. And I was like, well, that's going in Deathbringer before you put it in the next Shadowdark thing, But I needed her to say that to me. She was like, that's cool, and when it came and I was brainstorming with Stephen Glicker, and I was like, how about, the characters have more than one death and they sort of get more powerful as they die. And he goes, that's a winning mechanic. Nobody has done that before, because these guys, Mark Seifter too, they have an encyclopedic knowledge of every role-playing game ever created. All right. Mark went to MIT. Stevens played every role-playing game. He played Toon. Did anyone out in the chat ever remember Toon, the cartoon role-playing game by Steve Jackson? Great game. I thought I was the only one that played it.
I haven't played it. I'm familiar with it. I just haven't played it. But I definitely know it, and I guarantee you that there may not be somebody in chat right now, but I guarantee you that I have subs who have. There you go.
Yeah. And then going back to the first step, you got to read. If you're going to read, you better read a lot of role playing games, because a lot of times when people will pitch me they don't do it as much on Patreon anymore because I've told them I can't do it because I'm working on my own role playing game. But I'll be like, pitch me your role playing game. Tell me in 30 seconds why it's cool. And they pitch me a mechanic that they think is original, and I'm like, oh, that's like this game, the 3rd edition. And they're like, it is? I'm like, yeah, someone already thought of that. You got to read that game. You could still do it. But like, oh, you want a meta currency, and you want social rules. Oh, you're not the first to think of that. James Bond 007 role-playing by Victory Games was the first game to do that. They were also the first game to think of a meta currency that could manipulate the outcome of players' roles. So you really have to know your game history and know your games, because whatever game you're thinking of, someone probably already did it. And that's why I can look at a game and I could read through it and I could say like, okay, this game is like this game, like Dragonbane. Great game, by the way. Fantastic game. Dragonbane is RuneQuest with the 20-sided die roll under. That's what it is. Doesn't mean it's not, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I'd take that a step further. Great. I would take that actually a step further. And this is really why I think like the feel is more important than the real is a very important key, is most of the stuff that is actually worth doing has been done. We have what will we have now? A 50 plus year history, 56 year history of these kind of games. And you're not going to come up with the brand new idea. You may come up with a novel way to use that idea. And that's where the feel is more important than the real. If you're trying to base your entire game off of a brand new, fantastic mechanic, I hate to tell you, either A, your mechanic sucks and has major flaws that you haven't figured out yet, or B, somebody else has done it. My game is based on the D30. The D30 exists for a reason because somebody else has already done a D30 game. I may not be super familiar with it, but I'm not going to come out here and say, man, I decided a 30-sided dice is amazing, and I'm the first person who ever thought of that. So if all you're bringing is mechanics, I don't think you have it. It has to be a combination. And we go back to Deathbringer. It's not just the mechanics. Like, we look at that death mechanic that we've spent so much time talking about tonight. It's not just the death mechanic. The death mechanic fits the feeling of the game. It fits the 80s action aesthetic. It fits that. It fits dragging yourself across the ground and being the coming in out of nowhere with the big critical hit that swings the tide. That fits that pulp 80s action movie or 80s sword and sorcery movie feel. It feels like those stories. And to be honest, I'll take it a step further. I'll say if you reach back further into the grittier pulp stories, it fits those. It fits that feeling of being part of that story narratively. And then it gives you a mechanic that allows you to put yourself into that feeling. And that's what sets it apart from just another game that has a similar mechanic.
Well, thank you. That's very flattering. And it is part of designing the game is marrying the mechanics with the feeling of the game. So I don't want to brag about myself. Mjorkborg does that really well, where it's like they're one of the mechanics, they got a weather chart, and the weather is always miserable and rainy. Like there's not one sunny day on the chart. That is showing you the world through the mechanics of the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're coming up to the end. There are 8 minutes left in this. I'm going to give you I'll do my spiel first. Guys, this is awesome pulp. Not just because I wrote one of the 7 stories. I wrote one. All the praise is about the other 6 guys, or the other 5 guys rather, who wrote the other 6 stories that are in this. And the 2 artists who put in a ton of work. Check it out. It's worth it. I promise you will not be disappointed, and you won't be disappointed in volume 2. And while you're here, like, share, subscribe. Memberships, Patreon are out there. Again, every dollar I take in goes to building, through this channel here, it goes to building cars for me to give away. But we got a few minutes left. We got 7 minutes left in this stream. I don't think he'll need all of them, but they belong to Professor DM, who has graced us with his presence for the past 2 hours. What do you got for us?
Well, thank you for having me, Daniel. And Deathbringer is available on BackerKit. I'm pretty sure everybody knows. It's go click on BackerKit, and the crowdfunding goes for, I think 20-something more days. And the more money we get, the more cool things we can do, and the more we're going to stretch out the line. And that's all I got to say about Deathbringer tonight. Are we going to talk about cars?
Yes, actually, you know what? We have to talk about that. All right, guys. What's in your driveway, man? Tell me. Tell me what's in your driveway.
So my wife and I, our retirement present to ourselves was a new Mazda MX-5 RF convertible, hardtop, retractable top convertible. And we got that, and it was my wife's idea. I didn't get it with the Deathbringer money. That's not what I used the Deathbringer money for. It was we saved up for it for years. I had to give my son a car. He came back. He had served in the army, and I thought it was right that he had it. We wanted to start him off right, so I gave him the car the beater that I had taken to school for the last several years. We were going to get a new car anyway, so my wife convinced me to buy a convertible, and we settled on that one. The second choice was the Porsche Boxster, but I couldn't afford a new one, and I'm not handy enough to maybe handle an older one. I just didn't want to deal with the mechanical issues that could occur, so we got the MX-5, and to be honest, it's like the best thing I ever bought in my life. I'm
I'm gonna tell you
driving it
right now,
up.
as a car guy, as a die-hard petrol head, you made the right choice here. Do you have the hard top convertible? Do you have the soft top convertible or the hard top?
I have the hard top, and the reason I went with the retractable is we live in New Jersey, and I just thought, okay, if I have to drive this in the winter, the soft top is going to be too cold.
And you made the right choice. 100 times over, you made the right choice. The MX-5 is a better car than the Boxster, hands down. Period. I actually kind of love that you said. For those who don't know, the MX-5 is essentially a Miata. The Miata was called the Enos Roadster in Japan for many, many years. But the MX-5 is the evolution of the Miata. And here's the thing about the Miata. That is a gentleman's sports car. It is small, engine in the front, wheels in the back. It has virtually perfect balance. And here's the beautiful thing about the Miata. Virtually every road course racing school on the planet, if you go to a sports car racing school, they will either recommend you have or they will start you in a Miata. It is about a perfect 50-50 weight balance. It is beautifully fun to drive. Here's a saying for you, for those of you who don't know, it is 1,000 times more fun to go fast in a slow car than slow in a fast car. It is more fun to go drive a Miata and just drive the piss out of it, which you can. You can push that thing and it will not punish you. It is so forgiving. It is so much fun to drive. That is so much more fun than I have a Lamborghini Gallardo Spider and I'm going to do it at like 80% of its capabilities because I don't want to end up in a ditch. That is a wonderful car. Sorry. Yes, you have.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, my wife, she convinced me, and it was, she was right again. She's right again. What a great car. I'm having such a great time driving it up and down the hills. I live in a very hilly area. I live at the bottom of a mountain, and so you just, it's a great area to drive it in.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. You get some hills, you get some nice windy curves. A Miata is one of the best in the world. I have out in the driveway right now. I have a 10th anniversary 280ZX. The 280ZX is not fast. It was barely even close to fast in 1980. In 2026, it is definitely not fast. But it is a stick shift, very small, very nimble, front engine, rear wheel drive machine. I will never have a day that I can drive that car that is not a joy to drive it. And the Miata is the exact same thing. And I would put this out there for the chat and for anybody who happens to come across this video later. It is way more important that you buy something that is fun to drive than people look at and think, oh man, that must be fun to drive. Way more important that you actually enjoy driving it. And a car like that, a Miata, dude, MX-5, I am shocked I have never owned a Miata or MX-5 in my life because you really can't go wrong in an MX-5. What color is it? I have to know, what color is it?
It's gunmetal gray.
Ooh, that's a beautiful color. I usually like that color on like bigger, like muscle cars, like big V8s that don't do turns very well, but like to smoke tires. But that is still a really sharp color. I like that. I like that, and I like burgundy. I really like burgundy for an MX-5. That's a
Yeah.
sharp color. Yeah, Robbie pointed out that there's a lot of Sports Car Club of America wins in the Miata. Yes, there's a ton of them because another thing you can do with the MX-5, YouTube, here's all the disclaimers, be careful doing this stuff, automotive is dangerous, blah, blah, blah. You can fit a lot of really big engines in a Miata, and you can fit a lot of that engine is actually really, it likes boost. So you can put some really big, nasty turbochargers on it. I think I've seen one at like a 16-pound boost turbocharger that adds like 150 horsepower, which is a tremendous amount in such a small car. So yeah, they're very well known for their ability to win races because they're so easy to drive. They're such a joy. But yes, I do. I'm very glad you said that because that is a car that we have a lot of love for over here. But here we go. Agile Monk, we are not going to mention Gremlins. Gremlins don't need to get wet after midnight, and they don't need to be on the road, period. Though I do have a player. She knows nothing about cars, even though her Call of Cthulhu character has a Bugatti Type 76. She thinks the Gremlin is cute. But awesome, man. So picked up a Miata as a retirement present, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
So you take the wife out, go through some twisties, and have some fun?
Yep. That's what we do. And I take her for ice cream.
There you go. That's the winner right there, my friend. And gunmetal is a great color. I mean, I can see the car. Beautiful color for it. But yeah, that's a killer right there. And is there a car you really want? Let's just go ahead and ask that before we close out. Is there a car you really want that you always want? What was your poster car as a teenager? You know what? I think you would have been a teenager in the 80s, right?
I was.
What was your poster car?
Well, in the 80s, it would be a Porsche 911. And a Porsche 911 would be my 80s car. And in the, now it'd probably be an Aston Martin.
Which one?
Which one? A gently used one.
Well, yeah,
one that is not $250,000.
Or do you want a DB5 like a James Bond from like back in the 60s?
Or do you want like a fancy? I'll take a newer one. Like a DB5 back in the 60s. That's a few $1 million, and there's only a couple of them left in the world. So no, I would get probably like a gently used one from back in 2012 or something like that. However, I'll be honest, it's not a convertible. Like now I love that Miata so much. I love it.
Look,
I don't really want another car,
man. The Roadster is the gentleman's car, man. There's something to be said about a Targa top or a convertible. There's a lot of fun to it. I definitely, and me personally, if I was going to pick a car for Professor DM, this is the Driving and Dragons official Professor DM car. You need a Jag E-Type. You need a classic Jag E-Type convertible. That's what I'm talking about. British Racing Green, tan interior, wire wheels, inline 6-cylinder engine, probably 67, 68 Jaguar E-Type. That's the car. And a Miata is a close enough modern approximation.
I did look into Jaguar actually, and but it's just not reliable enough. I wouldn't be able to afford the maintenance and the upkeep on it.
And you know what? I had an XE, and I got to 127,000 miles before I had my very first problem. Unfortunately, that problem was the timing chain snapped and completely destroyed the entire engine. However, I got 117,000 miles out of it, or 127,000 miles out of it, so I can't complain. The warranty that I had, the extra warranty I had, ran out at 117,000, but 127,000 miles, I'm not going to gripe too much. Anything mechanical, if you take care of it's great. But Jaguar E-Type, Miata, both perfect cars for the Professor. Guys, I appreciate everybody coming out. Professor DM, I appreciate. Cannot speak today. I've had a little bit too much of the old Doc Holiday here. I appreciate you coming out, my friend, sitting with us and talking. And you've been a great sport being out here all the way till 8:05 in the Central. Anything else to say before I let everybody go?
Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting Dettbringer. And Daniel, thank you so much for having me on. It's really been a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute blast. Guys, love y'all. We're going to call it an evening, and I will see you next time.